Today on Sports Science Shorts from the Perception and Action podcast. Will baseball's new proposed rule changes to speed the pace of play make the game more exciting and attract new fans? What can we learn from similar attempts made in soccer? What determines a sports fan's level of excitement anyways? So it's time for a call to action. Hi everyone, this is Rob Gray from Arizona State University and PerceptionAction.com. Welcome to the Perception and Action podcast, where I discuss how psychological research can be applied to improving performance, accelerating skill acquisition, and designing technologies. On today's episode, I want to look at the proposed rule changes Major League Baseball is considering, and what research from other sports, in particular soccer, tells us about whether they will be successful or not. For any non-baseball fans listening, the impetus for these changes are really two increasing quote-unquote problems in baseball: pace of play and what you might call pace of action. In terms of pace of play, like many other sports, the length of baseball games has been getting longer and longer. In 2016, the average length of a baseball game was 3 hours and 26 minutes. This includes longer and longer stretches of downtime between plays. This is not a good way to attract a younger generation of fans who tend to have very short attention spans. And this is a big concern for Major League Baseball, where the average fan is 55 years old. Many claim, though, that the much more serious issue is the incredible slowing of the pace of action. Baseball is a game that involves three basic things: throwing, hitting, and catching a ball. More and more in watching a game, fans are only being treated to the first one of these. In 2016, roughly 22% of the plate appearances ended in the batter striking out. Well, if we add walks to that, roughly 31% of plate appearances ended with the ball not being put in play. So in other words, roughly 1/3 of the time a batter steps to the plate, there is no hitting or fielding involved. The net result of this is that in 2016, a ball was put in play only once every 3 minutes and 25 seconds during a game, a 13% increase from 10 years ago. There are many reasons for this change, including a general acceptance of striking out as not being a bad thing, and teams carrying more relief pitchers who can come in for a short stint and throw 95+ mile-an-hour fastballs. But what I want to focus on is baseball's proposed rule changes to address these pace-related issues. The main rule that seems to be destined to be put in place for this year is changing how an intentional walk is executed. For those that don't know, currently a team can choose to not pitch to a batter and instead intentionally let them go to first base. Up until now, this required the pitcher to throw 4 balls out of the strike zone to the batter. With the rule change, these 4 pitches will no longer be required. Instead, a coach can just signal an intentional walk. So, essentially it will be like hitting the skip button in a video game to move to the next batter. 2 other rules Commissioner Rob Manfred is proposing are raising the bottom of the strike zone and starting extra innings with a runner already on second base. Finally, another idea that is currently being tested at the lower levels of baseball is a 20-second pitch clock. The Baseball Players Union is vehemently opposed to most of these ideas, and Manfred is now threatening to impose them unilaterally. Not sure this is the best idea in a sport that has a history of strikes and lockouts. Rather than give you my own personal opinion about these proposed rule changes, stupid, I want to look at research that has evaluated somewhat similar changes in other sports. That is, rules designed to make sports more exciting and attractive to fans. But let's first look at some general research looking at what makes sports attractive to fans generally.
I know you like to line dance. Everything's so democratic and cool. But baby, there's no guidance when random rules.
In 2009, Chan and colleagues examined factors which influence enjoyment of sports. In particular, they were interested in understanding why the financial incentives for winning in most sports are based on rank ordering rather than relative performance. In other words, a golfer in the US Open or the winner of the Super Bowl gets the same dollar amount no matter what the margin of victory is. This is somewhat counterintuitive because it's not the optimal method for ensuring players put in a high degree of effort throughout the game, something we assume most fans want to see. For example, if a team is up by a large margin in the second half of a game, they have no incentive to keep playing hard because their reward is the same no matter how much they win the game by. In this paper, Chan and colleagues develop an incentive model for sports fans. The model starts with the assumption that a sporting event involves a sequence of effort choices by athletes, based on the expected reward and the level of competition. On the fan side of things, it's assumed that enjoyment is not solely based on the effort put in by the players. Instead, spectators value suspense, which is high effort at times when the outcome of the game is still uncertain. For example, a tie game with only minutes to play. If enjoyment is determined by this, then a rank order incentive system, where the winner gets the same no matter how much the margin of victory is, ensures exactly what the fans want. Athletes putting in an effort when it matters the most. A win is a win type of payoff system creates a discontinuity in the result, which makes the game more exciting for fans. Turning to rule changes, in 2013, DeWenter and colleagues examined attempts to make soccer more attractive. They began with the same assumption that the baseball commissioner is making, namely that attractiveness in sport is directly related to the amount of offense in the game. In other words, fans want to see scoring chances, points, and goals, not great defensive plays. In soccer, the main way that this has been addressed is by changing the point system for wins, draws, and losses. Since 1994, in many leagues, a victory is awarded 3 points instead of 2, while a draw is still awarded 1 point. The assumption is that this extra point for a win will induce both teams into playing more offensively. A similar strategy has been used in NHL hockey. But does it work? Does it actually influence playing style in the desired way? In their paper, DeWinter and colleagues argue that this may not be the case due to what they call a home bias. In most sports, the home team does not only aim at winning, but also performing in an attractive manner to please the fans. In other words, home teams naturally have an incentive to play more offensively than the visiting team. Paradoxically, then, when the reward for a victory is increased, by changing the points from 2 to 3 for a win, this actually makes it more dangerous to play excessively offensively. So the home team may actually choose to play more defensively than they normally would. To test this prediction, the authors looked at data from the German Premier League between 1982 and 2000. Overall, the results seem to support their hypothesis. The switch to 3 points for a win led to a reduction in the number of goals by the home team and the number of home wins. At the same time, the number of goals by the visiting teams, as well as the number of visiting team victories, increased. The total number of goals, as well as the total number of games ending in a draw, did not change significantly. So in other words, the rule change did not have the desired effect. That is, an overall change in the level of offensive play. Instead, it actually introduced an asymmetry, with road teams playing more offensively and the home teams playing more defensively. Similar findings for the 3-point rule were found by Yun Hong and colleagues in 2016. Using data from Bundesliga in Germany, they found that the 3-point rule only served to increase the number of second-half goals scored by teams that were losing in the first half. Finally, and bringing it all back around to baseball, in 2016, Sun and Kyer examined another important question. Do rule changes designed to make games more attractive to fans have any negative consequences for the players? Specifically, what is the effect of pace of play rules on player fatigue and potential injury? To address this question, they developed a model to predict muscle fatigue in 8 arm muscles of a baseball pitcher. Using this model, they compared the effect of 3 different interpitch intervals, or paces. First, a self-paced strategy, using the average amount of time Major League Baseball pitchers took between throwing the ball in the 2015 season, which was 22.7 seconds. Second, they used a rule that is actually already in the rule book but never really enforced, that a pitcher should take only 12 seconds between pitches. Finally, they used a 20-second interval, which is based on the use of a pitch clock, which is currently being tested in the Arizona Fall League. What was found? For both the non-self-paced conditions, there was significantly more predicted arm fatigue, in particular in the flexor pronator mass, which is responsible for providing elbow stability. This is a very serious negative outcome because reduced effectiveness of this muscle is known to be a major contributor to the UCL elbow strains and injuries which currently plague baseball at all levels. See my review of the book The Arm back in episode 35A. So in sum, making sports more exciting by increasing offensive play is far more complex than it seems. Rule changes that on the surface would seem to induce attractive and exciting play on the field can produce complex reactions that actually result in the completely opposite effect. They also have the potential to have negative effects on the players. So slow your roll, baseball. You're out! Well, that's it for Sports Science Shorts. Coming soon on the Perception in Action podcast, a deeper dive into the role of virtual environments in sports training, as I work on a new book chapter on this topic. You can contact me via email at robgray@asu.edu or on Twitter at ShakyWeights. And remember, you can find everything you ever wanted to know about this podcast at perceptionaction.com. This is Rob Gray from ASU. Cheers for now.